when you talk about collecting, there's not this, it's an evolution. So you start to appreciate one thing and it leads to another. So I believe because I was, my studies was in advertising, and part of the curriculum I had to take some art history. So that gave me an exposure to, the whole masters. So, I started to look at it. And then as I've been exposed and, a good traveler, so I was also visiting museums at a very early age. After my graduation, came back, started to get into the real world, got a job. I believe I got to know some of the local artists, and this, I think, was at the start. And also there were some living artists from different nationalities, mainly Arabs, of course. And then this is it. That's where I caught the bug. And the rest is history. Of course, I do have many pieces from Qatari artists. But I believe it was some sort of a snowball effect. So I started here, and then maybe because a couple of Iraqi artists were here, I concentrated on that, but then I felt, oh, I should go to Egypt. Then, and I limited myself, and this is again another advice for any collector. Your collection has to tell a story. Otherwise, you will be an art enthusiast where you will have a piece from your life journey. So you go to India, you go to an exhibition, you buy a piece from this artist, and then you go somewhere, you buy. Where I'm trying to make a story with my collection. So I have different segments of my collection that try to make a story. I limited myself to the Middle East because geographically it's convenient, and it's just because, again, I go back that the process of meeting the artist, so I cannot travel halfway across the planet. And again, it's also part of the money management, because you cannot really buy everything, so you have to limit or focus on one thing. And as many collectors, and we have many of them here in Qatar, we have people who collect swords, people who collect pearls, people who... that collection, if it has a substantial meaning, it will have a better value even if you want to sell. So most of the time I have to visit the artist in the studio and to grow a relationship sometimes when they are nice, because not all of them are friendly. I mean, maybe I'm not friendly to them too, so I don't want to pass judgment. But the process is definitely to start a dialogue with the artist, to understand what is he and who is he, rather than just possessing that work. And in that procedure, so I have to travel a lot. So, back in the day, I go spend 2 weeks in Cairo, visiting several studios, galleries, got to meet the artists, understand the process, and develop a relationship with them. And then another country, and then another country. And so I grew a very strong relationship with a circle of artists. So that gives me a better view of collecting. If you notice in the small, beautiful exhibition, and I think the guys did a wonderful job, you will see a piece for one artist where some other collectors would like to buy 5 or 6, because they, I do have some artists which I have a few pieces, but that piece and that incident meant something, and I got it like the Emily Jasser piece. It's part of a very, important big collective of works, but this part of the puzzle can tell you the story and make you research and try to know more about it. Stories in the auctions, I think I would seldomly buy an auction, and I don't recommend any collector unless you reach to a certain level, because in the auction will give you a very great provenance and a great advantage because it is in the catalog of Sotheby's, in the catalog of Christie's or whichever auction house, but then you may end up paying more. But sometimes I personally had an experience last year in the auction here, Sotheby's. They had a beautiful Walida which nobody wanted to buy. I got it cheaper than whatever I could have got it in the gallery. So it's a process. And then as you go, because every collector will also have to manage his funds, because nobody has limited funds, even countries. I mean, some museums are complaining today in the West about how art became so phenomenally expensive. I mean, for any museum to afford a Jeff Koons, it's literally impossible. So you have to do a lot of money management. So it becomes a liability after a while. I mean, or you have to really give hard thoughts and time to make a decision. I don't want to get political on this, not in a position to speak about I mean, I think it will be difficult because each city wants to have its own show. So if I'm building something, if I go now to Sheikh Ahwa and say, how about moving to the Sharjah Bin Ali, which, you know, historically you built over so many years elsewhere. I believe it is happening naturally. The cycle is completing. Because any art scene has to have a cycle. I think in the Middle East, the cycle is definitely being more complete by the day. Institutions are here, collectors are here, galleries are here, art enthusiasts are here, auction houses, and so the cycle is becoming more complete. Now, to have such an event, to go from one city to another, I think it will be a bit difficult. For many reasons, which I can make a very long list, and I'm sure many of the audience will definitely understand, because we are very sentimental and emotionally we change our, you know, so one day we're friends, one day we're not. So let's each city do its own thing. And Dubai became the market. Qatar, Abu Dhabi, institutions. We were very strong here in Doha. We have our, I don't want to, but we're creating our own institutions, the MIA and all the museums, the National Museum and Abu Dhabi, maybe some of they brought partners with them, like Guggenheim and Louvre, and they're creating their own. So these institutions will definitely enhance the art scene because they have to acquire work and something. Definitely that's what museums do. And that will encourage artists to produce more work, encourage galleries to sell. Collectors would want to buy it because he's in the museum, and that definitely will create this momentum. I start to really research this integration, and I was always fascinated because historically, if you really dig into the history, many thought that in this region, due to religious perspectives, that they avoid to create symbols or draw humans or animals, so that's why they use calligraphy to symbolize or to reflect or to... this is a very long argument which I don't want to get to. So to create a narrative, I started to collect a history of, you know, like we say, word into art. So when the letter came in. And I was building and building and building, and it became, you know, a very, I hope, I mean, one day I can show it, and I hope I can work with the guys again, a very interesting collection that tells you a story, how the Arabic letter became integrated with the art movement, and in a different perspective, in a very serious way. So it's no longer just writing a statement with it, no, it is more becoming part of the artwork. So I have a few pieces from the early, you know, I think the earliest is about 59, and all the way till today I still buy the neon sign is a calligraphic piece. And I also have now, I'm building Arab Spring, and Khalid al-Bey, two pieces where when Maisa showed them here, and it was done in a format which I didn't like, so I asked Khalid and Maisa, so I reproduced it in a better manner. And I'm building now an Arab Spring collection to speak about how people saw this movement. And I think it's an important period of the history. So that, and I try to now, as a challenge, to try to research for artists from outside the Middle East who is doing work on the Arab Spring. So that will give it more of a distance point of view rather than an internal point of view. So that's another, and there is some other minute, but it is going to be too long that I thought about. Well, you know, this argument I have in many different locations. I mean, even in our majlises with my friends. And I was invited to speak with Francisco Bonanno, the curator of the show at VCU, whom I never met. I'll be frank with you. They say you have to talk to him. Khalid called me. He said, okay, we talk. Okay, we talk. So we went, had lunch, and started this dialogue. I think Damien Hirst is a global phenomenon, whether you like it or not. You don't like the dance, you don't like the shots, he's a global phenomenon. Historically, he is the most living, expensive living artist. He sold more art than anybody. Everybody is buying his art. He's controversial. I believe the message which QMA gave to the public here and to the region, because I'm sure this was one of the most important visited exhibitions in Qatar. I don't know, maybe the guys have the statistics, but Damien Hirst is a phenomenal thing that history will never be able to delete, no matter how people talk about it. I think the challenge is that there's many artists from the region became famous abroad, and then they came back. I mean, you go to the show today in Madhaf, Mullah Khartoum. Mullah became famous in the West, Arabi. And I can list goes on. Munir Fatmi, there he was in Paris, Adil Abdessamad. And now what we would love to see is somebody to get famous from here to go outside. Unfortunately, getting famous, it's a formula. So you have to have all the ingredients to be able to make it. It's the gallery, how they sell you, of course your work has to sell itself, and so on. So for me, definitely, yes, I was fascinated when I started to be exposed. I remember the first show I saw for Mullah Khartoum, I was in Venice, in the Binali, maybe 3 Binalis ago. And I was overwhelmed with the quality of work and the message he's trying to deliver. Phenomenal. I mean, I'm sure most of you have seen the show in the Madhaf. And that opened my eyes to that segment. So I started to research on people from abroad, and Munir Fatmi, Qadir Atiyah. Meanwhile, I'm actually, one of my first Arab Spring pieces is a neon which says democracy, and we split it and put an N in the middle and called it democracy. And when we see what's going on today, it's definitely democracy became a demon. It's like, because people wanted democracy, but they don't have peace now. So what do I need, the democracy or peace? I mean, what's happening in Syria and many of the other countries. So that created that momentum. And definitely I started to go to Europe and start to, the difficult part, because those guys are famous in the West, so they're at least 3 times more expensive than anybody in this region, even though now the region is following as in price structure. So that itself became an important challenge. Now, luckily we have a few artists who start to be exposed to the West, and one of them is a personal friend of mine, the Nasser Dara, who's a Saudi artist. The Nasser, because I was close to the Edge of Arabia experience, and I traveled with them, and I was always collecting the artists, and went to Berlin, and in different cities. I even went to Abha, and I went to their studios, and I was like, where is this creativity coming from? And these people, you will be astonished how they just created this work out of their environment, and they're thinking out of the box with the minimum exposure, because you need to be exposed to be creative. And so Abdel Nasser sold one of his works for almost 600,000, 700,000, one of the domes. Okay, I don't know, people say, well, it was a challenge, I don't know. It sold for that much, whether you like it or not. Another artist, I don't want to glorify our Saudi friends, but Manal, who sold her piece right here with the doves, which also sold for a very, good price. The first piece I bought for Manal was $600. So she sold this piece for $200,000 here, plus minus. But it's a fun ride, I guess. I think. For the local community, we will need that, because there's very few of us, and the interest is spread there. And I had somebody was criticizing about our national football team. He said, well, you have so many foreigners in your football team. I said, yeah, we're only 200,000. We play basketball, architect, doctors. I mean, we have to import somebody. So I think it will take time. And on the other hand, when you look at the art fair of Dubai, also, it is a lot of, and I don't see why not. I mean, he gave a very nice quote about Sheikh Mayasa and so on. And I would like also, I think she said in her TED talk, she said, globalizing the local, localizing the global, and that's what we want to do. I mean, we want to bring, the globe to us, and I'm sure there is a generation who will come to appreciate that. And let's not be in a hurry, because people are always in a hurry. We cannot. We've been fast forwarded a century, a whole century. So the gap between me and my father, and between me and my kids, is a century. I think, I don't know about museums, but I definitely would like to have my collection to be shown. I mean, art has been taking me to places, and I met people which I never thought I would meet. And it's opened a lot of doors. Even in my private business, I get to see people and executives through my art collection. I think the collection would definitely should be housed somewhere, because you reach to a stage, it's no longer yours, because if it reaches to a level, I'm hoping that one day I will be able to do that. I mean, I always show my collection. Sometimes every year during the art fair, I host, this year I host the new museum people. I get 30 people which you don't know neither one of them. Invite them to your house, you talk about the art. And if you go back to their own countries, they will do the same to you. So it's been a good interaction for me, and it's a good, fun experience, because I like to socialize. I'm not sure what's going to happen to my collection. Maybe ask the kids after I go away.